Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Connected Wellness Podcast. I am Rachel Ann. I'm here with the lovely Mary Ann and our very lovely special guest, who we will introduce in just a few. But we're here and we are so passionate about wellness.
Here in this podcast, we look at the ways our physical, emotional, and spiritual health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically so we can live our best lives. We're super excited that you're here with us on the journey. And this is episode 20. So we are
Woo!
really excited here for episode 20. We have an amazing
Yes.
guest, and it's just exciting morning all around. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine, for
Thank
being on
you.
here. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We've made it to 20. God is good, y'all. God
Uh-huh.
is good. You will notice we are in a little bit of a different format. Our typical software decided to take a break from working right at the second that we were going to start recording. So we are on Zoom for this time around, but we have a hunch you're still going to really love and enjoy everything that Jasmine is going to share, all of the nuggets and questions and answers that we got going on. But yeah, let's hop right into our wellness wins. Who would like to go first in sharing their wellness win?
I can go.
Okay, go for it,
Yay, go for
girl.
it.
So I have been on a journey to walk and just get my body moving. And so a wellness one for me is that I hit my 5 mile goal every day this week, with the
Nice.
exception of when I wasn't feeling well and listened to my body and got some rest. So yeah, so that's my wellness win.
Wow.
Awesome. That's
Oh,
great.
God, 5 miles. That's a lot of miles, girl.
Yeah.
Go you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
How about you, Marianne? What's your wellness win?
So I'm pretty excited about this one. It's kind of a big step for me. So I signed up for this group coaching program that
Nice.
I had been following this person on Instagram for a while, and her content was really resonating with me, and it's something that I very much know I need to work on. But there's so many reasons why I could have been like, no, this isn't the time. I have too much going on. Like, I don't know, it's expensive, like all these things that I was like, I don't know. But I decided, based primarily, I think, on our last conversation about priorities, I was like, no, this needs to be a priority, right now. This is like for my wellness, for my mental health. It's okay. I need to do this for myself. So I signed up, and last week, I think this week was our first call. So I'm like really excited. It's a 12-week program. And I'm just like really praying that it's gonna, have a big impact, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, go you,
Thank
girl.
you.
That is amazing. I'm very
Yeah.
biased, but group coaching programs are very
Yeah.
awesome. I highly recommend them. Lots of transformative change and great community
Yeah.
happens there. But that's so awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay, priorities. My wellness win is I had a few that I was thinking about this morning, and I was like, wow, Rachel, that in itself is a wellness win that you have so many you can choose
Uh-huh.
from. But I'll go with my flowers. You could see them right here. So I recently changed grocery stores. Long story. Text me if you want to know about it because it's just a lot. But I think I'm going to settle on Trader Joe's. Their customer service is really, really
Mhm.
great. I don't know if they have things that are problematic yet, so I'm still doing my research because I'm like, I like to be ethical, but so far I like them. They're nice, and it's very affordable and very yummy. And Trader Joe's, if you don't know, they usually have like bouquets of flowers. They're a grocery store, but they have like other things to do outside of like your regular groceries. And so I was walking around and they had like different bouquets. And so I was like, oh, let me look, Usually I'm rushing. Today I'm not rushing. And I was like, oh, these are so pretty. And I was like, okay, let me like go about my business. And then I was like, Rachel, you actually really like this one. So you should buy it. It was like $4. So you should like buy it. And I was like, should I buy it? Is this a waste of money? Is this too frivolous? Is this something that we need in our home? And then I was like, Rachel, you can afford $4 flowers, which is really great. And today we're talking about financial wellness. So I was like, okay, this is like not an issue. And you really like flowers in your home. Like anytime my husband has surprised me with flowers, or anytime I would just like randomly get flowers from an event or something, it really adds so much to the home.
Mhm.
And I was like, girl, you can like make this a thing. And so I bought them and they're so pretty and I'm so happy. And they're like blooming. So that's my
awesome.
wellness win.
They are so pretty. I
They
love it.
are. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to introduce this wonderful human that you were like, who is this wonderful person that is on here that is like smiling, that is joyful, that is beautiful, that is all of the things. And I will go ahead and read her bio so you learn a little bit more about her. So this is Jasmine Lopez. Jasmine Lopez is a Latina creative and storyteller. She is the owner of Mentally Mutual, where she longs to cultivate BIPOC healing spaces. Yes, through creative storytelling, gatherings, and mutual aid. Another yes. In 2010, Jasmine's family lost it all. They lost their home, their possessions, and even their car. She believes this loss was an invitation by God to reimagine and redefine what thriving means. Over the last decade, Jasmine has been in pursuit of building an intentional life that is rooted out of her values and what brings her joy and meaning. She's been able to build an abundant life not tied to money. Jasmine invites you to journey with her as she shares how she was able to find healing and purpose through her story. And I think that through our conversation today, we will probably accept that invitation and we will have so much to learn from. So super, super welcome, Jasmine. We're so happy you're here. We got your bio, but like, tell us like more about you that you feel like sharing.
Yeah, so I am a creative. I'm a professional photographer, have been for the last, oh my gosh, close to 20 years now.
Wow.
It has just been an outlet for me that has allowed for me to experience healing. I didn't have language for it then when I first got into it, but now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's this visual storytelling that's allowed for me to document and amplify other stories the way that I've longed for my story to be listened to and acknowledged. And so it's just been this really beautiful process of incorporating storytelling with my faith and how can I use this form of creativity to share the beauty of the world and what's going on and taking place. And so I've done a lot of really fun creative projects. I'm also a mom to 3 beautiful girls, which is wild to think I have a high schooler and we're homeschooling her and the other 2 go to public school. And then my husband, we got married at 22. We're high school sweethearts. And so we just hit 17 years this year of marriage. It's wild. Like,
Wow.
I think it's flying right now.
Yeah, we just hit 17 years this year too, actually. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. And I met Jasmine at a conference. I think I spoke about it on the podcast, the Sower Summit conference here in New York City. We'll put the link so that y'all can like sign up or be on the email list to sign up because the registration still isn't completely open yet. And we met, and I feel like I immediately noticed how wonderful her energy is. And she was like, yeah, I live in a firehouse. It's really cool. And I was like, wow, I've never heard of that before. And she's like, yeah, I'm really passionate about BIPOC healing and wellness and support in spaces and creating spaces, like spaces. And she also mentioned this passion that she has for financial wellness. On Instagram, she's a money coach. Well, that's one of the titles that she has that you can find her on Instagram for. And so Marianne and I were chatting about the different dimensions of wellness that we really care about here on the podcast. And we were talking about how financial wellness is something that impacts our spiritual, our mental, and our physical health, and we should probably hop right into it. So I immediately thought of Jasmine. To me, she's an expert in the field. To me, she's a really incredible person, so we're so excited to have her here today. Jasmine, can you just like tell us, what does financial wellness mean? And when we see money coach or financial advisor, what does that mean when we see those things?
Yeah. So to me, financial wellness means having a healthy mindset with money that allows for us to make informed financial decisions for the now and for the future. Right. And so there are tons of different money coaches, finance coaches, as well as advisors. Advisors are licensed. There's like it's almost like a master's program that you have to go to become in order to give financial advice, versus coaches are providing education. They're providing support, helping you identify what are your money goals and how can we help you take those goals to the next level. the way that I approach coaching or connecting with individuals is, let's first identify, how do we even build a healthy relationship with money?
Mhm.
What does that look like tangibly? And then how do we create a joy and meaning list that reflects our values so that it informs how we create our budget, right?
Mm.
And that our budget and the stewardship of it is being done out of a place of joy and not shame.
Ooh,
Mm.
yeah. Oh, okay. You said
Mhm.
so much in there. I'm thinking a lot about, like the communities that Mary and I are from, which are primarily BIPOC, primarily children of immigrants, primarily Christians. And the idea, I don't know, for me growing up, it was like have money, but like you just need to save it. There was no like number goal. It's like just save, 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 never spend. And I was like almost scared to spend money. I was scared to like get my first credit card, and there was just this idea that you need to save for this rainy day that you never know if it's going to happen. You don't even know what the rainy day is going to look like. And I think there's a lot of great things that I learned, but there was also some things that I wish I learned. I feel like I didn't learn like literacy stuff. I feel like I didn't learn to have a healthy relationship with money. Now I'm almost 33. Praise the Lord, we got there. But I have a hunch a lot of people who are tuning in may also have learned those things. So I don't know. What are some things that you have to say about that and to provide support for?
Yeah, first, I think I had the same exact experience as a second gen Latina. So I'll never forget, I had my first job working 12-hour shifts on the weekend, and all I did was like just save that money, didn't spend. Like,
Mm,
and it really is what created the scarcity mindset then, right? Like just save, save, save. There's no intention or purpose behind what I'm earning. And in fact, I was praised for that behavior. And it
mm,
wasn't until I lost everything and have gone through this healing journey that has helped me recognize, like, we are all given a different amount of tangible resources to steward, whether that's a lot, whether that's a little. We still have a responsibility in partnership with the Lord to identify, how can I use these dollars to promote healing? How can I use them for not just my thriving, but for the thriving of others, whether it's generationally my family, or in the space that I call my neighbors or in my community, right? So when we talk about how do we build that healthy relationship, what does that look like? I think one, it's not linear, right? In all healing kind of ways, healing is not
mm,
linear. It's always this kind of like up and down, backwards, forward process where we have to allow what stories we've written and beliefs we've written around our mindsets, specifically with money. And I think that's such an important step to do. So what are the stories that you were told growing up? Whether it was through family, whether it was through TV, whether it was through our own assumptions and that understanding of how we engaged with individuals, and what are the beliefs that we've taken on from those stories that aren't rooted in truth?
mm,
So I think that's the first step,
Mhm.
is taking the time to do that digging deep, that internal work. And then it's being honest with ourselves, right? So a lie I believed for a long time is my life is meant to be a life of struggle. Growing
mm,
up in financial insecurity, making poor financial decisions so that my adulthood was also living in financial insecurity. I took on the mindset and belief that I am meant to struggle for all my life, right? I even heard a pastor say that there's always going to be poverty in the world. Some are going to be wealthy and some aren't. And I associated that language to inform or further confirm this lie, right? And so it was through my loss where the Lord was like, let's redefine what all this means. What are these money lies? Let's confront the lies and then let's build some truths around them, whether it's
yeah.
through scripture, whether it's through affirmations, whatever we want to use. And so I clung on to scripture. I researched, I studied the Bible to see what can I use that helps me redefine these ideologies and these beliefs that I have. And then
Mhm.
the next step is, right, comparison is this huge struggle that we have as a society. How do we not compare ourselves to our neighbors and the things that they're engaging in? Well, I believe, like, if we can root ourselves and really identify what are the things that bring us each joy and meaning. For me, that might be something completely different than it might be for you, right?
Mhm.
And so when I can stay in alignment and rooted out of the things that bring me joy and meaning, when you get to experience the things that bring you joy and meaning, then that means I can celebrate with you, right? And so it's not a thing of comparison anymore. It's a thing of, wow, I get to see you experience joy in a way that brings you joy.
Mm.
And then when I get to experience the things of joy that bring me joy, then you get to celebrate with me in that, right? Then we can create our budget and do all those things that reflect our joy and meaning in our values, right? So for me, what's a value? Like, I value generosity. So giving is a big part of what my budget is reflective of, which means that I want to identify, where do I want my 10% to go? And that may not always look like at a specific church, right?
Mhm.
It may look like partnering with my neighbors. Like, God, is there an individual I should give to? Is there an organization I should give to? And so for me, that's kind of the journey that I've walked through. First, identifying what are the lies that I believe around money, and what I believe even is potential for me to have access to. What are the truths? What are the things that bring me joy and meaning? And then how does that inform my values so that I can then create my budget?
Mm. So I love so much of what you said. The word steward, especially, as Christians, that's huge, for us to think about. But I have a big question about, okay, so if we go through this first step of healing and figuring out, again, what are these lies that I told myself, at what point do we reach this level of baseline financial security? Because for me, the thinking about my values, and how I like want to rearrange my mindset is almost like the next level. I have to have this baseline, right, of financial security first before I can think about a budget or giving, or what exactly do I want. So does that kind of come like automatically with this healing, or what do you think? Like, how do some people don't probably feel they're not there yet, and it sounds like you had that experience as well in the past, right? So how do we get to that baseline?
That is such a complex question. Let's see. I
I'm
think,
sorry.
no. Okay, so there's two things that I want to say. First, I do acknowledge that there are earthly systems that have created disparities and challenges that make financial security a challenge. While I also believe that as children of God, we have the opportunity to tap into the kingdom system, because I believe on earth we are so far away from what God originally intended, right? And so learning how to abide and learning how to co-create and partner with God has helped me find the sense of security in who I am on earth, as I am tapping into who God says I am through a kingdom mindset. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to this concept of security, we have to be able to vulnerably ask, like, does having money guarantee security? Right? And if we believe that it is, then there's an opportunity for us to uncover and identify, well, really, money is just a tool, it's a resource, right? God is our security. Who are we putting our security in?
Mhm.
And how can we tap into the unlimited resources that he says we have access to as his children, right? So if we're in a season of let's say lack or struggle, then it's, how can we experience creative provision that isn't necessarily tied to physical dollars? That could mean needing to sign up for Link for a temporary season because we are facing financial insecurity and our family context meets those the constraints or the requirements to qualify. That is a form of creative provision
Mhm.
without an exchange of our physical dollars. And so this idea of security, I think we really have to allow ourselves to sit and process with the Lord, like, what kind of security are we looking for?
Mhm.
And is it tied to who God says we are? Or is it tied to, I'm finding security in the money that I have? And that is such a hard thing to do. Trust me, I know, I've been there,
Mhm.
in the season when we lost it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
Wow.
it's a very good point. It's just hard, I think, again, for someone who's there to say, yes, even though if they really firmly believe in their heart, my security comes from God alone. I need nothing but God. He is everything. but if they don't have a meal for their children, you know what I mean? It's just the practicality, the logistics of it. It's very difficult, but I totally agree with what you're saying. You know,
Yeah.
even the most financial security, the most money you can have, if you don't have your security in God, you know, you're really like floating off in the air. You know what I mean? You're not secure at all. You're not stable. You're not anchored. So I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So then how does that look like tangibly, right? So let me give you an example. It means then that there is an opportunity to be vulnerable with those we say we are in community with, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
we were on the verge of losing our house, we didn't know where we were going. We didn't have the money for the security deposit or the first month. And so for us, that meant we needed to invite our community into, right? And culturally, for me, in like the Latino context, you don't talk about this kind of stuff. You
Mm-hmm.
don't tell people what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're on the verge of losing everything. There was a lot of shame tied to it, a lot of like, what are they going to think? They're going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about us or gossip, right? But vulnerability allowed for us to go to this new house church we were going to share with our pastors. I told my husband, I was like, I think we're supposed to tell them that we're in the process of losing our house.
Mm-hmm.
At first, he was like, I don't know about that, Jasmine. And I was like, I think we're supposed to. Like, scripture talks about like this
Mm-hmm.
idea of sharing with one another,
Mm-hmm.
confessing to each other. And so we went to our pastor and we had dinner and we got to share our story with him and we shared with him what was happening. And, and he's like, well, we're here to help. How can we help? So that vulnerability created opportunity for a need that we had to be met, right? Another thing is we invited our family into it. So in the process of losing our home in that transition, we were, by the grace of God, able to have a family member take us in, my husband and I and our little child, she was 2 at the time, and as a transition, and they held space for us. They provided us with their presence. They gave us food to eat as we were in this process of figuring out, where are we going to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then we found an apartment, our credit was shot. This is where we can partner with God. Okay, God, we're going to do what we can here, which is we're going to work, we're going to do the research, see what apartments are available, we're going to apply, and then we're going to trust that you're going to help provide us with a space. So
Mm-hmm.
then we found an apartment. We went to our pastor and we said, hey, do you think you could write a character letter for us? Like talking about that we are people of integrity. Like this is just a hard season for us. He wrote us this letter. We gave it to them and we got that call back. And he's like, you know what? Your credit is shot. I think we had like a 400 credit score at this point, y'all.
Mm.
It was like, yeah, but everyone's credit sucks right now because of what's happening in the mortgage crisis, right? In the Great Recession back between 2008 and 2010. And he's like, and we're going to take a chance on you. I have a good feeling about it. And it ended up being this beautiful provision that was provided for us that just required vulnerability and for us
Yeah.
to lean on our community and our loved ones.
Mm. Oh, I love that so much. Pretty much every podcast episode, we talk about the power of vulnerability and how when we are vulnerable with others, it really helps us to get the support that we need. And our life is just better that way. And in a lot of our communities, whether you have a marginalized identity as like a person of color or a child of immigrants or whatever that marginalized identity is, I feel like we've been taught that we can't be vulnerable. We need to be like, well, we're strong, everything is fine. Don't worry about me. How can I help you? And it's interesting because I think one of the most interesting and hard things about being a follower of Jesus is that God takes all of the rules and he just like flips them over. All of the things that we would think, he's like, actually, no, you should do the opposite of that, right? Like you should apply for things that you probably are not going to get. I want you to apply for that. There's either a learning lesson in that where you're going to get it, or there's a learning lesson in that where you're not going to get it. And you're going to continue to see my provision in that. And you're going to continue to feel my love and support by relying and being there for your community members. And it was such a beautiful way. And so I love that part of your story because I think that it's a personal mission of mine as a coach, but also as like a person to really encourage that vulnerability because I think there's a special type of healing that takes place, that vulnerability with your community that can really just take people to a very healthy place that even coaching or therapy can't do. There's something special about collective care. Yes, you're coaching, your therapy, or everything, but please get that collective care too. And that's one of the reasons why I don't know if it's for is it Mentally Mutual that has like the collective piece, or just your personality? I know collective care is a part of your brand.
Yes, that's a big part of my brand. I think there's been so much focus and emphasis on individual thriving and wealth building, and look at what I have, my net worth, and knowing those things are good. That's important, right? But how are we considering our individual decisions and its impact on the collective, on the whole, when it comes to financial wellness and financial decisions that we're making? And so, yeah, I am deeply passionate about thinking about it. It's this interconnected process. We're an ecosystem and we need each other to fully live and thrive. And we can't do this without each other. And I think that's so inherent culturally to who we are. It's communal, it's together, it's spiritual, it's through storytelling, it's through gatherings. And so it's a way for us to tap into our cultural legacies and to be able to say, I'm going to show up collectively through storytelling or through gatherings as a way to be able to say, hey, you're not alone. There's the power of me too, that we can heal when we can even strategize together and share our knowledge and our lived experiences with each other, you know? So, yeah, absolutely. Collective thinking is a must, and it's a big part of the work that I do.
It's definitely biblical too, you know, like you mentioned a little bit of it, but there's so many pieces of scripture that tell us to support one another, bear one another's burdens, right? The early church was very much unified, everybody's collective, possession. So yeah, I mean, there's very much a basis for that. So now what I want to ask you about is, so you mentioned the budget and we're to values, right? So kind of if we have never thought about this, how can we start identifying, okay, now God willing, I'm stable, I'm making, all my needs are met, but I want to like be more intentional about how I'm spending my money. Is it about like an idea of listing my values and kind of seeing where my expenses line up with those values, or kind of what do you recommend as a starting point there?
Yeah. So after you've done the mindset work, whether or not you're facing financial insecurity or you have a stable income, I think that's a must, right? And even in our values, I think you want to get together with your family if you're a family context, or if you're an individual, then you can do that as well. And then identifying like, what are your values? What do you stand for? What are you passionate about? What do you deeply care about? Right. So for me, that's generosity. I care about my kids having access to a faith-based education. So when you look at my budget, it reflects, the tuition that thankfully the school that they go to has a commitment to ethnic, racial, and class diversity. So that allows for our family to have access to education that's affordable and accessible for our family context. And so my budget reflects that. It reflects my 10%. I value being in BIPOC diverse spaces. So where my home is in a diverse space. When I consider, if I'm making a decision, if we were to move the neighborhood, I would do the research to identify, where do I want to live that reflects my budget, right? Where do we eat? Are you someone who cares about eating organic or natural or GMO free, right? Or are you someone that's just like, hey, I have a small budget, I need to just stretch these dollars out for this season, and so I'm going to shop at Aldi. When we can create and identify what our values are, our budget should reflect that story and what our values, again, are, and recognizing that this is just, it's a season. In the season of, you know, less or small, and in the season of a lot, I'm still going to intentionally steward what I've been given, and I'm going to make decisions that reflect what my values are. And so I'm going to take the time to write them down. I'm going to dream it up, right? I call them dreaming sessions. I love hosting dreaming sessions where we can talk about this. What is it? And then of course we should be co-creating with God too, right? Like we're not just like, this is what I value. No, it's like, God, who do you say I am? What are the unique giftings and callings I have in my life? And how do I make sure that this is also reflective in how I'm using my resources? And resources doesn't just pertain to physical dollars. It's time. It's what we can time bank. There's mutual aid. There's, when we think about like the economy, the solidarity economy and this movement in the cooperative space that's happening, it's using those skills to time bank or meet the needs through mutual aid. So there's a lot of ways that we can experience or express this. But first, it's what are the things you value? And then what brings you joy? I think that is so important, because when I was starting my financial literacy, there were some coaches where a lot of things were just like, don't spend anything, right? Like it was like, don't spend, don't do this, don't do this, do this, do this. And it was just very rigid, very, I don't think holistic, and it wasn't connected to joy. And when we can identify what brings us joy, like what lights you up. An example for me is I love curating beautiful spaces. So like design and decor. Fashion is not really a big thing, especially since I've had small children for such a long time and my clothes would get ruined. So for me, I'm like, I'm not going to create a budget for a huge fashion budget, but I do want to include some dollars, even if it's $50 a month, to go buy some new decor so that I can add into my home and my space to create that safety. And then that allows me to be reflective of the things that bring me joy.
I love everything that you said. I love everything that you said. I'm thinking about how this is one of the hardest things to unlearn, is that you can prioritize, right? Last episode talked about priorities. You can prioritize and financially budget for your joy. And it's worth it. And I think that's hard for us as children of immigrants, BIPOC people with other marginalized identities, and as Christians too, because there's this idea of selflessness that's actually very unhealthy that we've learned, where in actuality, the Lord isn't calling us to completely neglect and forget about ourselves. The Lord is calling us to just not be selfish. I could go on a tangent about that, but I won't. And so I love what you're speaking to, which is your joy has a place and it is worth spending, it's worth saving, it's worth investing. And I'll share like a personal example. My husband and I, for some of the different values that we just have different savings accounts. And I was like, wow, we like have values. Wow, it's like growing. Like when I intentionally put like one of ours, we are not putting that much into it every month, because we care about it, but it's not like the biggest concern for us at the time. And it's a season, right? In another season, it might be different, and that's okay. Like seasons are allowed to change. Our needs, our joys, the things we wonder about, it's allowed to change. And I was checking it the other day, and I was like, oh, even though it's a tiny amount that we're putting in each month, it's still growing. And there's some months where we're like, oh, we don't really need to put into it. And that's fine. There's other months where we do, and it still grows. And it's like, wow, when I do want to participate in whatever that value is, there is something there. And it makes me believe that it is actually possible to do whatever that thing is that brings me joy. So I love connecting our finances to our joy, because when we see the number, when we see it there and it's like actually ours and it's real, it makes me feel like, oh, I can use it and it's actually not a waste. Like I'm still able to pay all of my bills and participate in this thing that brings me a lot of joy. I really love that you highlighted that.
Yeah, can I add and I want to make sure that for those, I want to think about like the diverse listeners and who's listening in, and whatever resources we have, like to even create space for joy, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could even just be $5, right? Like $2, like, or it could be none. There's ways that you can experience and express joy without actually spending money, right? You can go to the secondhand. I love secondhand shopping. I deeply love and value coffee dates and getting to listen to people's stories. So I have a $21 budget to go to Starbucks that allows for me to get 3 coffees a month. And that's my budget. It's not big, it's not huge, but it allows for me to experience that expression of joy and connecting with others so that I can feel connected and purposeful out of who God has uniquely designed and created me to be.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
When you mentioned rigidity, Jasmine, that really spoke to me because I think that's every part of our life. So if you think about your physical health, if you have a doctor or a coach or a, trainer who's like saying, okay, you can absolutely never have sugar, you have to do, X number of workouts a week and, blah, blah, blah. And then your life feels like work. Like, you know what I mean? Every single part of your life feels like work, and that's not sustainable, right? And the lack of joy is sad. Like, we're not meant to live without joy. So I feel like that kind of balance is for every part of us, budget included, financial wellness included, right? So building in a little bit of flexibility, just like I recommend you do for your diet, right? And your fitness routine is the same as with your, financial wellness. Yeah. Yeah. So I like that a lot.
I do. This is a sad part of the episode where we have to begin to wind down. So as we begin to wind down, Jasmine, do you have like one tidbit or one, like, if there's one thing you can do, this is a thing that you can leave with people who are listening?
Yeah, I'd say take a deep breath, release what you can't control, right?
Mm.
Whether that's you're in a lot of debt or whether that's you're facing financial insecurity. And then ask God, how can I tap into your unlimited resources to be able to experience provision for fill in the blank? And it creates this opportunity to listen, to hear, and to create a plan with him and what your future and your present day can look like.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you,
Sorry,
Jasmine.
can I add something to that? Because I love that too. And sometimes it's hard for us to imagine how God will provide. But if we think back and if we start keeping a list of all of the times God has provided, big and small, I mean, I have examples of huge, provision and teeny tiny provision, but that I still felt like this is from God. Maybe this teeny tiny thing is just to bring me joy, to let me experience his love. And if I remind myself of all of those times, then it can help me feel a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more trust in him, right? That this time he will also provide in a way that I probably don't understand or I cannot foresee, but he will provide, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Jasmine, if people wanted to connect with you, if you have anything you want to share, I know people like to have freebies, so we'll give you the opportunity if you want, but talk to us. How can people connect with you and hear more about you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram the most. It's your friend.jasmine. And then I just launched Mentally Mutual, which is my financial wellness, mental well-being website and space. And we're still curating what that's going to look like. It's very new and fresh, but all of my content is on Your Friend Jasmine.
Love that. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And if you want to connect with us, we're at Connected Wellness Podcast on Instagram. If you want to email us, we're at connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear your thoughts, right? This was a really thought-provoking episode. I already have so many questions about like abundance mindset. Is that Christian? Is that holy? What is like something we can do in terms of making sure we are unlearning unhealthy values around money? So there's so many questions that I have. So definitely hit up Jasmine. If you're like, I want to ask the questions for Marianne or Rachel, you can email us, hit us up on Instagram as well. I'm on Instagram at Real with Rachel, and Marianne is also on Instagram at Wabasaba. We're also on Facebook for the people that use the book face, at Connected Wellness Podcast. And we will link all of those things down below. Yeah. Am I forgetting anything, Marianne?
I think you got it all. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you guys for being here for episode 20. And we hope to see you again. And in the meantime, be well.
Awesome. Be well, everybody. Bye.